This week on Dude Stuff.
What is going on, guys? Today is going to be absolutely awesome. I've just picked up this Specialized Fat Boy fat bike. It's an absolutely awesome bit of kit. It's going to tackle mud, sand, gravel, all kinds of terrain. And what's going to make it even more epic is we're fitting a 72 volt Andy Kirby kit to it, which is a brand new kit, and this thing is absolutely going to fly. The best part of this is I'm going to be showing you everything you need to do to turn your fat bike, or to turn any fat bike, into an absolute monster. I'm going to be showing you every step you need to do, what kind of bike you need to buy, and then we're going to be finishing up with some performance tests with this bike against a 3000 watt, maybe a 2000 watt. We're going to be doing hill tests, top speed. We're going to be putting it neck to neck with a 3000 watt e-bike and seeing exactly what this bike is capable of, so stay tuned. Talking about the 3000 watt bike, guys, this is ending in a raffle in just a couple of days, and you can win this awesome 3000 watt 60 volt e-bike that does over 50 miles an hour for just £2. So check out the link in the video description. Don't forget to get your entries in, guys. It is ending within a day or two of this video going up. I'm always giving e-bikes away on the raffle. This is going to be my 8th e-bike I've given away. Right, let's talk about what bike you'll need to fit this to. You can't just go out and buy any fat bike. The problem is most of these fat bikes now come with a closed dropout, which means you cannot fit an electric hub wheel. Now, I searched high and wide. There are a few bikes out there, but bear that in mind when you search for it. You need to check the dropouts. This beast here I bought from Marketplace off a lovely guy called Miklos. I paid £1,000 for this bike second hand. It's got the open dropouts, it's got the quick release, so fingers crossed it should fit. This is the first time doing a 3000 watt hub on a fat bike. Also, we could come into issues because the last time I fitted a 3000 watt to a normal hardtail mountain bike, there isn't quite enough room for the hub motor cable, so it ends up fraying on the brake disc. But that being said, if we pull this off today, guys, this is going to be a 4300 watt 72 volt beast, and that's not even fully charged. Once the battery is fully charged, it's going to be around 84 volts of epic power. I can't wait to see how this build goes. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the e-bike kit and get started. Right, so the kit's turned up and I've literally just cut the packaging. I haven't had a look through it yet, so let's check the contents. So this should be the 3000 watt rim. Definitely a fat rim. I don't like fitting 3000 watt kits to a standard mountain bike dropout in the frame. That cable is just too thick to go between the frame and the hub motor, and it always causes problems. So we're going to find out today whether that's a lot better on a fat bike with the bigger dropout. Fingers crossed it will be. Guys, let me introduce you to Loki. Unfortunately, I lost my beautiful dog Gabby to cancer last week, and absolutely heartbreaking for those of you who've got dogs would understand. And this is a new friend of the channel, Loki. Lives up to his name, God of Mischief, don't you? Yeah, you're a little shit. Be seeing more of this guy on the channel, getting up to no good. Let's check out this box. I did request that with these kits to have 2 of these Velcro cable wraps. You can join them together, so that's good. Let's check out this controller as the main thing in here, which is a bit of a beast. We've got a 60 amp controller that can go from 48 to 72 volts. Don't know if this is sine wave, to be honest, but there's pros and cons to each. There's pros and cons to sine wave and non-sine wave controllers. I do find the non-sine wave can actually be a bit more brutal on the acceleration. It's a bit more crude, but faster, so that could be interesting. The other thing, full twist throttle. Absolute massive bonus. I much prefer full twist throttles. You know, thumb throttle's absolutely fine, but on this kind of power, it's great to have your whole hand grip on the handlebars, on the grip. Please don't need this. And we've got an XT90 connector there for the bigger battery, and we've got these much more compact bullet terminals for the phase cables, so you haven't got the big clunky connector block. Ugly as hell controller bag. I probably won't use this. I find if it isn't a sine wave controller, then the cooling is much better out of a bag, so maybe we'll use it, but I don't think I will. 84 volt charger, 72 volt, 84 fully charged, and I'd imagine this will be the display. What kind of display are they giving us with this new kit? That to me looks exactly the same as the one fitted to the 60 volt kit. It's a pretty decent display. Got the control buttons here, and that is pretty much it. Get a few cable ties and bits and bobs in there, and that is everything. Actually hasn't come with brake cut out, but I don't actually like brake cutouts. I prefer to have the full control of the throttle and feather the brakes. So yeah, all good. Guys, don't forget this kit is available on KIRBEBIKE.com, which is absolutely awesome. You can go to some guys you trust and get this kit. Also, the battery is always shipped separately, and at this point we don't have the battery. It's due to turn up today. Guys, look what's just turned up, literally right on time. This never normally happens. Normally waiting a few days to a week for the battery. As you can see from the labels on the box, they are dangerous goods, and you have to be very careful shipping these and handling batteries. They pack a lot of power, so let's carefully get this box open now and see the contents. Can't wait. Yeah, 72 volt. There's a lot of packaging in there, and they do a good job of making sure this thing doesn't end up damaged. What are you doing? Oh wow, I went out and I bought some of these because I realised last time you need better cable ties to fit in this, so they've included some in the box. I do recommend after fitting a 60 volt battery that you use these heavy duty cable ties, so that's sick that KIRBEBIKE have included them. There we go. Exciting times, guys. 72 volts. Let's go. Right, I don't know how they've done it. I think it's just pure magic or black magic, something of that variety, but they've managed to cram 72 volts 20 amp hours into exactly the same battery case as a 60 volt. I don't know how they've done it. But that is absolutely awesome. Exactly the same as the 60 volt. You've got the chrome on button here, really high quality. Got a charge port on it, and we turn it around onto this side, you've got a little display that shows the voltage. Just press this button and it should light up, and you've got a USB charging port. Guys, I do not know if this is going to fit the frame. I honestly don't know. I don't know if the 3000 watts going to go into this frame yet. I haven't even removed the back wheel of the bike, but we're about to find out, so stay tuned. Got the bottle mount in there at the moment, but I'm just going to try and size it up. Oh my god, that looks tight. I'm not sure if this is going to fit. We're going to have to... It's actually got 3 bottle mount holders on this. That's different. You've got 3. Anyway, we need to remove all of these completely before we fit it, but that looks... That's worrying. This project is going to fall on its head. If this battery don't fit, there's no way we're mounting it anywhere else. So let's get all of these anodised red bolts out of the frame and see if it fits. I love the way the guy that bought this has done nice little details like red anodised bolts. He's also put like red spoke nuts or nipples, whatever you call them, on the wheels. He's done a lot of bits of this bike. I love the little details this guy's done on the bike. He's got like little red anodised parts on it. It's got a suspension seat post, which actually feels really nice. You've got race face bars, race face crank. He's upgraded the carbon fibre non-suspension forks to suspension forks. This is a nice bit of kit. Also, the previous owner of this bike's put 4-piston Shimano brakes on, so it is a proper bit of kit, this bike. So I think the 72 volt is going to pair, we hope the 72 volt kit is going to pair perfectly with this bike. Just before we attempt to see if the battery fits in the frame, we have an issue. Last time I did 60 volt, it's not a big one, but I found that putting some old inner tube between the cycle bottle mount, like raised lip for the thread on the frame, you've got these 3 raised bits which make the battery not fit nice and snug to one flat surface. So this time around I've bought some self-adhesive rubber tape off of Amazon myself. It doesn't come with a kit, and I'm going to put strips of this on the frame between the holes for the cycle bottle mount holder. I hope that makes sense. So it sits on a much flatter surface and it kind of gives an anti-dampening effect. But first things first, we need to know if this battery is going to fit, because if it doesn't, this project's a dead end. So without further ado, let's find out if this 72 volt battery will fit in this frame. I really hope it does. We've still got these 2 bolts here, but oh my god, wow, she's tight. but I think that is going to work, and she looks good, really good. The controller at first glance might not have enough room up here. I might have to fit that on the underside of the tube, but that's absolutely fine with me. I think it'll be fine somewhere around here. At first glance, I think that's how we're going to do it. So thumbs up, it actually fits the frame. That's really good news. Right guys, we flipped the bike upside down. We are ready to start removing the rear wheel and building up the electric hub wheel ready to fit to the bike. On the ground I've got laid out all the tools that I think I'll need to get started. There might be additional things, but this should be the majority of the stuff needed to do this conversion. On the far left we've got a set of Allen keys, a rubber mallet, a 21mm spanner, a set of wire snips, a 9-speed freewheel, got some heavy duty cable ties, some normal cable ties. We've got the rubber adhesive for the battery, and then just some tie levers and a tyre pump. Right, almost forgot guys, you need the Torx T25 bit for undoing the brake rotor on the bike. I've got a feeling I'm going to lose a few tools along the way of this build with this new puppy. What do you think? The other important factor that I need to point out is that these 3000 watt hubs do not come with a cassette. So your gear cassette off of your fat bike, if it hasn't got a freewheel, you are going to need to buy a freewheel. It's worth bearing in mind that these only come up to about 7 or 9 speed. I've got a 10 speed bike, so the plan is with this, we're going to find out if it's going to work, is to fit a 9 speed and block off one gear on the derailleur, so we've only got access from gears 1 through to 9. But this is just another one of those things we're figuring out as we go guys. Let's see what happens. Right, we're going to remove the quick release wheel now, so it's very simple. Flip the lever. Sometimes these are a bit tight, this is no exception. God, that is tight. I'm going to have to come around this side. Right, so we're going to try and flip this lever, which is tight as hell. Oh my god.
Much later.
That's the end of the video guys. I can't get this. My son's going to have a go, he thinks he can do it. Get your muscles out then. It's tight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Alright, we're going to resort to something else then. Do you give up?
Nah. One more.
One more go.
Much later.
No, give up.
I've got 14 years of grip strength from doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I can't do it, so this one's a tight one. So I don't want to scratch the frame. I'm going to wrap a flat point in a little bit of microfiber cloth and try and create some leverage. And there we go. Simple as that. Just going to hold the nut the other side, spin this round a few times, and that should be ready to come out. Just going to put my foot on the seat, lift it up, jangle the chain and gears out of the way. There we go. So the parts we're going to harvest off this is the brake rotor, we're going to need that, the tyre and the inner tube. The 10 speed cassette is absolutely no good, we're going to go with a 9 speed freewheel and hope that that fits on the spline and on the axle and not causes any issues. This is a first try in this, we don't know if this is going to work, and I think that's it. It's a shame it's got these red anodised spoke nipples and they're going to be a smaller gauge spoke, so we're just going to go with the standard ones that are on the bike. Yeah, let's get to stripping this wheel down. Right, although we're not getting the red anodised spoke nipples, we have actually got an all black freewheel, so I think that's a upgrade to the one that's on there in terms of looks. This actually was nearly 70 quid for this freewheel, it wasn't cheap, so it's all additional parts that we needed for the build. Also, we can remove this plastic dork disc or leave it on the wheel so we don't have to use this silly little plastic protective thing that's behind the cassette. So yeah, I think although we're losing the red spoke nipples, we're gaining some aesthetically pleasing upgrades by having this fresh black freewheel, which I think is going to look sick. This whole bike's colour scheme is just pure black everything and a few dashes of red, and I think it already looks amazing. It's going to look absolutely sick. I cannot wait to get this done. Let's go. Jiu-Jitsu grip strength. Right, where's my tyre levers at? Puppy, where you done with the tyre levers?
Underneath the cassette.
I guarantee there's going to be a part of this build where Loki runs off with some tools. Guaranteed it's going to happen at some point. Certainly clockwise from the disc side, and it's clockwise from the cassette freewheel side. So you can see it does say rotation on the tyre, so always check that. Guys, I always mention this, but put plenty of downwards pressure. I recommend using one of these T-piece handles so you can really drive down on it. Especially when you've got a new bike, these come with lock thread and they round off super easy, and they make your day much worse when this happens, because then you have to get your drill out and have all kinds of nightmares going on. So plenty of downwards pressure. Oh dear. First one done without rounding it off, so you've got 6 chances to ruin your day. Four more chances left to ruin my day. When you get to the last one, you just think that's going to be the one. It's always like the last one if he's ever going to do it, or the first. Sod's law. Yes. Success. Always a good day when you don't have to get the drill out and drill off the bolt head. You'll see when it's got lock thread, it's got like a blue paste on the thread, like this one. I bet I can't get this disc off without taking the quick release. Yeah, we're good. Right, I think that's all we need. Another spare wheel to go in the shed with the other 10,000 spare wheels from conversions I've got. Time to get this 3 kilowatt hub unravelled. So, this is a 3 kilowatt wheel, however, the total power of this kit is going to exceed that. Do you mind? The total power of this kit is going to exceed 3 kilowatts, and a lot of hub motors will, that's the rated power for it to, you know, 100% safely handle. This will handle the power that we're throwing at it. It's approximately about 4,300. We've got a 60 amp controller, 72 volt battery. It's going to give us about, I think, 4,300 watts. And each of these kits that have been sent out have been tested long term by the manufacturer to make sure that they can handle that power. There we go. Always be very careful when you're snipping a cable tie that's attached to the motor cables, because that will ruin your day far worse than it would rounding off a disc bolt rotor. Need some more coffee. Be careful cutting off the cable tie of the motor cables, because that will ruin your day far more than rounding off a rotor bolt. You do not want to cause a short. So here we go. Well, it looks like we've got 2 hall sensor sets of cables, I think. No, they're hall sensors. Yeah, 2 sets of hall sensor cables, which you often get on 3 and 5 kilowatt motors. And then you've got your phase cables with the gold bullet terminals. I think they're about 6-7 mil, something like that, I guess. Everything's now just going to be fitted in reverse, but there is a plastic spacer on here that you must always remove to get decent brake disc alignment. It's quite hard to get this off. I'm going to use snips just to give myself a bit of an extra chance to remove this. This is the bit that you want to remove. You don't want to have that sitting behind the brake disc. It's only plastic. It's a little plastic spacer, so get rid of that, bin that, and now we're good for fitting the brake rotor, which I've lost. Make sure you fit this with the writing on the outside of the brake disc. So you want to fit your 2 sets of hall sensor cables through, your phase cables through, and just bring that all the way down. That's really tight. I think I'm going to have to take the nut off. It's just not going to go over. Very tight. With this thicker cable, it's so much different to like 2000 watt and lower. Everything's more higher power and heavy duty. Set these to the side. Let's give this another try. This is unexpectedly difficult just to get the brake rotor over. Oh, there we go. Nice and easy. Line that up with the holes. I always use the bolts that come with the bike, normally a little bit higher quality than the ones you get with the kits. Go round in turns, just in a kind of alternating pattern, doing them up to spread the load evenly. You don't want to do one up super tight first. Start winding all of the bolts in to distribute the load evenly. Right, on this side it looks like it's come with a freewheel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 So most of the time it probably is going to come as standard with a 7-speed. I'm not sure if they had the option on the website to buy. You don't really tend to get freewheels in too many sizes like cassettes. They're either usually 7 or 9 or single speed. In my experience, maybe occasionally a 3-speed, but... Right, got the freewheel tool ready. This has got a slightly larger hole in the middle, which helps it fit over the axle. And this one's hand loose. Obviously, if it's not, you're just going to get a set of adjustables or a spanner on there. This one seems to be undoing alright. Just keep rotating that until the freewheel pops off. And I really don't think with 4,300 watts power it's going to make much difference losing one gear by fitting a 9-speed on this instead of 10. This thing should annihilate hills, and we're going to be finding that out in this video. Right, freewheel's off. Probably a good idea to lay it down flat. Get it on there flat. Start rotating it. And that is it, that's tightening up now. Now what I think with a freewheel, this will be absolutely fine, because when you pedal it, it will tighten the freewheel. If you want to make sure it's definitely safe, then you can just pop the tool back in and use a spanner just to make sure it is definitely tight. There we go. Freewheel tool is stuck permanently in the wheel. I can't get that out now. There we go, I think we got it loose. Right, all we got to do is put a tyre and tube on it, and this wheel is ready to go. Right guys, good news is the wheel is built, but there is bad news. I suspected this might be an issue. I've done a 3 kilowatt hub on a mountain bike previously, and it poses all kinds of nightmares, as I said before, due to the thickness of the cable. But we've got a spacing issue for the disc. I've just lightly rested the back wheel in just to confirm, and the brake disc is sitting in quite a bit from the caliper, and it is not going to line up. So we're at a stage where this project could fall on its head if I can't find a solution, and the solution to it is to find disc spacers. Now the only thing I had laying around was one single disc spacer. This goes behind the brake disc, and this helps bring the brake disc out towards the caliper if it's out of alignment. You get a little bit of side-to-side movement with a caliper because it's got a slot, but it's not a lot, and it's definitely not enough on this one. My local bike shops, they don't really tend to use disc spacers. You can normally, on normal mountain bikes and bikes, you can get the alignment that you need without having to use disc spacers, so they rarely use them. But they did have a couple of small 1.5mm shims, and I bought these spacers as well. I'm going to take you in closer to show you how I go about trying to get around this problem, and it is honestly, the wheel is the worst part for the build for me sometimes, especially with like these high power wheels. If we can get the wheel done, everything else is smooth sailing, but we're at the point now it's tough. It's really tricky to figure out. But anyway, let's take a look. I'll show you on me. Right, so how I go about this is, normally when I'm trying to figure out the spacing of the caliper to where the disc drops into it, I've just put one washer each side on this hub, dropped it into the dropouts just to give me a rough lineup of where everything's going to sit. And when I rest that, well, I can't even rest it, it's way out. It's way out. I mean, if I put the caliper over the disc now, it's very difficult to film. This is the slot for the caliper, and this is the slot for the bike. So we need to figure out the distance between the centre of this hole, and it's a bit difficult to measure this one because it's slotted. So we need to figure out roughly the distance between here and here. This has got to be one of the fiddliest jobs ever. I'm just trying to get a rough gauge of how far out this is. And I'm going to go with a ballpark of about 8mm out. So we're going to need to space. This brake disc rotor 8mm out from the wheel. So we need to remove the wheel out of the bike now and remove the brake disc. Fit what spacers we have, because I believe I've got about 6 to 8mm of spacers. I may have to make a few more adaptations as well, which I'll show you in a sec. Right, this is more of a nightmare than you'd think. You'd think, oh, what are you whinging about? Take the brake disc off, fit the spacers, slap it back on the bike. Unfortunately, it's not that straightforward. For starters, the bolts aren't going to be long enough, and it's not something you can always easily get. Like, these are M5 bolts, and I think they're about 10-12mm. And I think we're spacing it by about 8mm, so probably need 20 or mil so M5 bolts. I've been down at my local hardware store to pick up a variety of different bolts to use, but it's a bit of a nightmare because you've got to take into fact that this cable could rub against these bolts, especially when this comes out. This has got to sit out the thickness of that, and you can see how close that is now to the cable, plus you've got the bolt head on top of that. So effectively what you're going to have is, all I could find was 20mm bolts and 25. You've got to take into account you need the thickness of the brake disc as well. So if I just grab a brake disc, I mean this is on the wrong side, but just for demonstration purposes, that's the thickness that these are going to go through, and this is how much thread's going to go into the wheel. Now I've got the issue, if I use one that's too long, it might not get to the bottom of the thread, or it might touch the internals of the motor. We'll have to test that out, and if it's too short, it's not going to make the brake disc fit securely to the wheel. So there's multiple things that can make this an absolute bloody headache. But I think the best we can do is, in this situation here, is fit all three of these spacers behind this disc, and then maybe try the longer bolt first, so it would be the most secure, and check that the motor still rotates freely and doesn't cause, you know, an issue for the motor locking up or anything like that. So first things first, we'll get the brake disc off, and we'll try just putting one bolt on the disc and see where we're at. Right, so I've got the disc spacers, all three of them. We've removed the disc, we're just going to pop these through. Bit fiddly to do. Move that down the cable. And I'll try and get them over here. There we go. Right, they're over. Obviously we need to line them up, but they're going to move about as we do it. Try and get them roughly in the right spot. Grab the brake disc, right inside up, same again. Now, I'm going to take, which one am I going to take? See, I don't know if that'll be long enough. To be fair, that looks pretty decent actually. I think you got to think of the cable frame. So I want something with the lowest head, which is the longer one. So in this case, I can either go with a shorter bolt with the fatter head. This is a short one with a fatter head, or I can go with the longer one with the smaller pan head. Let's try the longer one first. See if it'll wind in. We'll see how far it'll do up. Well, we don't even know whether this is going to, as I'll do this up, we don't know if this is going to bottom out where it's a bit too long. It's getting tight now, so I think that's starting to bottom out. It's getting really hard to do up, and I'm worried I'm going to be damaging something internally on the motor at this point. Still moves freely, but still got at least 3mm to go, and no, it's getting really tight to do up, and it shouldn't be. So I don't think I'm going to be able to use the longer one. Trying the shorter one now. I still think it's got a few mil that's going to sit within the hub, but we're going to have the problem when we've got these bolts in of this cable fraying against it. It is always an issue with these conversions with a 3 kilowatt and 5 kilowatt wheels on a normal bike. I'll pop another one of these in. I say we just get all 6 in, get some washers on this, and then fit it to the wheel and check the clearance of everything. Just going to check again how much thread depth is going into the wheel with this shorter bolt once we've got this one out. So if I put this bolt with the nut there, you can get an idea how much thread goes into the hub motor, and I think that is, if you look underneath here, I think that is plenty enough sufficient to get a secure attachment of the disc. But the heads of these bolts are a little bit bigger, and that is going to cause us some problems with whether this cable is going to rub or not. Anyway, going to get all 6 bolts in, get some washers on, and then see where we're at with it resting in the bike. Right, so this is the issue we've got. We've got the thickness of the bolts, the thickness of the cable, and this little notch here on the axle is about where the dropout of the frame will sit. So if you look at that as like a cross section, that cable has got that much space to bend and go in the right direction. The cable can't exit like that because the bike frame is where this metal ruler is. So we need to bend that out of the way, and it still needs to clear these bolt heads as the wheel rotates. And you can see here how close that is to that cable. All we can do is get this on the bike. Obviously, if that's the frame, you'll get a cable tie and pull that cable as far away as possible. I don't actually know if this is going to be a little bit easier because it's a fat bike frame. But yeah, it's we're going to have a spacer on there as well, so maybe we'll get an extra couple of mil or so in. It's very, very tight. I've done this before on a normal mountain bike. The only problem is I don't know if I've got enough spacers behind here to put it out enough, but you get any more spacers than this, and then the issue of rubbing becomes even worse. There is also one last thing I can do to improve my chances of fitting this, and that is, on the caliper you've got these slots, and the only other thing I could do is get a drill bit the same size as this hole and just work the slot just literally about 1 millimetre bigger, so I can run a drill up and down. You don't want to take too much away from this and, you know, risk the structural integrity of the caliper, but even taking the thickness of the paint off and shaving off 1/2 to 1 mil could make all the difference that we need. So I'd rather do that before I try putting the wheel on. I think 6 mil, we're just going to work it up and down. So we need it off of, where are we going? The brake disc is on here and we want it to slide more that way, so we need the brake caliper fits on the frame and we need it to go towards the disc. So if I take it from the outside, if I take a slight shaving of material and paint off of the outside edge of the caliper, it will let the caliper just move that. I may be able to gain another 1/2 1 mil, that's how tight the tolerances are on this. Right, so I've already done this top one. I don't want to go much further than that. If you look at the side profile of the standard amount of materials left on that edge and that one, it has actually bored it out slightly in this direction. Now I just need to do the same to this bottom thread to match that one. Bit more. Right, I don't want to take too much more off than that. We're going to get the wheel fitted up now, get some spacers on the wheel. Guys, last night we struck disaster. We had an absolute nightmare. So we were just putting the back wheel onto the bike ready to film the brake caliper alignment, and got the wheel on, put a nut on one side, passed the nut to my son, said put the nut on the other side. He put it on like 1/2 turn, and I've gone around with a spanner and cranked it, and we've damaged the thread just at the tip of the axle of the hub wheel. And this is a massive problem, because if I turn the spanner anymore, unfortunately we didn't film any of this, but if I turn the spanner anymore, it's going to start stripping the thread because the bolt had gone on at a slight angle right at the end of the thread. So if I wind the spanner on anymore, it's going to start stripping the thread, and you can't remove the axle from the bike, or you can remove the axle from the bike. You've got to completely strip the entire hub motor down. I'm still not sure if you can get to the thread from the other side. So at this point we abandoned filming because it was late, and it was like 1/2 an hour from all the shops closing. I was ringing up engineering shops. I was putting my shed apart looking for a tap and die set. And the problem is, most tap and die sets you buy regular from the shops with different sizes only go up to about M12. Now, the axle on an e-bike wheel is M14, I think, or M16, 1.5 mil pitch thread, coarse thread, and it just turned into a nightmare. I've tried every option. I called engineering shops, I was looking for tap and die sets, and I spoke to my friend John from JD Welding and Fabrication, and he said, why don't you try a thread file? And I'm like, I've heard of that, but I don't know what it is. So I googled it and tried to look for one in the shops, and no joy, nothing was in stock, everything was next day, and was under a deadline for this project. So I looked on Marketplace and I actually found one that was like a 1 hour drive away for £2. So I drove all the way to Shoebury and got this thread file off this old boy. This is a thread file, and I think this is going to be a useful thing to get you out of a tight situation. I think it's useful to show you guys, if you're stuck between a rock and a hard place and you get a situation like this, this can potentially really get you out of trouble for certain parts. When you've got a tiny bit of damage to a little bit of thread, this can really get you out of a tight spot. This is Rob from DreadFX's wheel that I'm just going to use for demonstration purposes. It's a 5 kilowatt wheel, very similar axle, but for demonstration purposes I think this is a good tip to show you guys. So you've got different sizes on here for whatever pitch thread, and it doesn't matter what the overall diameter of the bolt is, as long as you get the pitch right. And if you're not sure what type of thread you've got, on the end here you've got the sizes in the center, and on the end you've got like a feeler gauge. So this one is 1.5, so if I take the 1.5 and put it on the thread, when you look here, that fits that perfectly. But if you've got a bit of shit in your thread or a tiny bit of damage, you figure out what size it is, 1.5, turn it over, and you just gently work it up and down like this to correct any threads and start clearing the shit out of the thread. There's no actual damage to this one or no crap in the thread. So long story short, I had absolutely nightmares last night, and we finally got the thread corrected. The problem was we just needed to get the nut on, because the damage was at the very end of the thread. It's not going to affect the structural integrity of the wheel being on the bike, but we needed to get the nut past that so we could crank it up and tighten it up, check the caliper alignment. The final thing we had to do after we used the thread file, where it had just slightly squished the thread when we tried to crank the nut with a spanner, it had squished and raised the height of the overall thread, so we just lightly run a flat file over it to bring the height of the threads down to the correct diameter, and then the nut went on lovely. It spins on by hand, it doesn't catch on anything. Now it is fully done up. But if we couldn't fix that thread last night and we couldn't do that, all the options were not good. I would have had to either buy an entire new hub wheel, get it shipped from China and wait another 2 weeks or so. I could have got an axle, but then I would have had to strip the entire wheel down. These 3 and 5 kilowatt hub wheels have got extremely strong magnets, and trying to, you know, undo the casing and bash it on a metal plate or bash it on a hard surface to separate the magnetic motor, you know, deal with having to remove silicone, and it's an absolute nightmare. So effectively we almost lost the entire project last night, and this tool from a guy called Len thanks Len for sending me this tool, saved the absolute project. It was almost like this project was going to end last night. It was really stressful, but I'm happy to say we've fixed the thread. It's yeah, it's absolutely mint now. The nut goes on, it goes on tight, so we've got the wheel fitted on the bike with the spacers that we put behind the disc, and I'm going to show you the fitment. Let's go. So it's a great tip to have a thread file in your toolbox for emergencies, but it is an even better tip to be very careful when putting the nut on the axle or the hub motor, because it's got a couple of flat spots on the axle to allow it to slot into the bike, which it can catch on. So it's very easy to get the nut out of sync and out of line, and if you crank it on too much, the wheel's absolutely ruined. Word of warning from personal experience. Sorry about that noise, my puppy's ripping things up in the background. Yeah, word of advice, be very careful putting the nuts on. If you're doing this thing often, you know, thread files isn't a bad thing to have in your toolbox. Even if you've got some old crap in the threads, or you're using an old, you know, part that's hard to replace or source, get yourself a thread file. Onwards and upwards, guys, the wheel is fully fitted. I'm going to show you the alignment now for the brake disc and brake caliper after fitting those spacers. Right, this is the fitment with a disc from above and the spacers. And as you can see from below, the disc lines up lovely now. The bolts have gone in. I've changed out the bolts on the disc because because I got a normal hex nut on top, it stuck out too far and it was touching the cable. So I found these M5, I think these were 22mm bolts in the workshop laying around for another project, and I borrowed them, but I had to file about 2mm off the end of these bolts to make them fit because they wouldn't screw all the way down. I think it's just about giving us a clearance. This is a problem with these 3 and 5 kilowatt wheels. You always, I mean, if you know a way to get more space and clearance, I've experimented with several different things, but this is the amount of clearance you get on that hub cable, and it is not a lot, but I'm happy enough with that. And everything's done up tight. We've stuck a torque arm on there, as you can see. We are halfway through now, guys. This was by far the worst part of this build, getting this back wheel on. It should be all clear sailing from here on out, and I can't wait to get this thing finished today. Also, a quick reminder, don't forget the raffle. It is ending within a day or two of this video going up, so it is your last chance to win that awesome 3000 watt e-bike. Now let's get this bike finished. So next up, we just fitted the full colour display, the full twist throttle. This is very simple to do. One Allen key bolt to undo the lock-on hand grip that's on the bike, and then 2 bolts to fit the display and 1 bolt to fit the control buttons. And then we've begun cutting the foam to mount the battery to the frame to support the battery, give an anti-vibration dampening effect, and it just gives a nice solid flat base. You haven't got those raised lips on the bolt holes for the cycle bottle mount holder that I showed earlier in the video, and it just gives a much better fitment. I highly recommend buying some of this adhesive rubber tape. And then we begun adding heavy duty cable ties, mounting it to the bottom tube first so we can put it hard down onto the bottom tube, because otherwise if you cable tie it to the top tube first, it's going to be swinging around in the air and it's not going to have that firm fitment. If you tie it down hard to the bottom tube first, you're going to get much better fitment on this. Next up, we fitted the controller to the underside of the frame just using cable ties and a little bit of rubber adhesive tape just to make sure it doesn't scratch the frame. Again, gives an anti-dampening effect. Don't get any bad vibrations through the electronic hardware. And then last job to do, not least, is to just tidy up all the cables using plenty of cable ties. Get everything nice and tidy, bunch up all the wiring near to the controller and fit it inside the Velcro covers that you get with the kit. Wrap it all up nice and neat, and then we're going to switch the bike on to see whether this thing works. What is going on, guys? The bike is done. I've just powered it up, and come and look at the display. It looks really nice. So right now it's turned on in level mode 1, and you've got number 2 tour mode, number 3 standard mode, sport mode number 4, and number 5 turbo mode. Let's put it into mode number 1, see if the twist throttle will work. even in mode 1, this is absolutely bonkers. Let's just go straight up into 5. Way. I say we get straight out on this. Just put a GoPro just for testing purposes. We give this a quick rip down the road before doing any races. Make sure that everything works. Let's go. Right, guys, we have not messed about. We're literally, it's about 60 seconds after leaving the workshop. We're going to take this out, make sure everything's done up tight and stays on, and I just can't wait to get out on it. Let's go. Let's try this in level 1. Whoa. Right, she's ready to rip. I'm going to take it out for an half-hour rip now. You guys are going to come along on board and let's find out what this bike can do. Oh! Turbo mode, let's go! Yeah! Whoa, the front wheel is light and lifting off the ground at over 40 miles an hour. It's crazy. That is mental. Oh, I'm a little bit nervous this time round. On the power a bit. I'm only half on the throttle when we're doing 40 miles an hour. Wow. I'm not even going to open the throttle up till we get around the next bend. Oh, the front end's light. Here we go. 45. 52. Whoa. 56. I've got to be honest. I don't think that was full power, and oh, my heart's racing so much. This bike's going to hit around 60, but there's no way I'm keeping it pinned any more than that. That is terrifying. There is a huge hill there with the national speed limit. We're going to send it up this hill now, see what speed it goes up a big hill. Throttle only, no pedaling. Let's go. God, the front wheel's popping up. Straight up to 20. My God, that was so scary. 30, 35, going uphill. We're hitting a steady 40 miles an hour up this massive, massive hill. Oh, coming off the power. You only have to have the throttle on about quarter power to cruise at 30, 40 miles an hour. This kit is absolutely mental. What an absolute weapon. And this battery is on so tight with these extra strong cable ties. I've got 3 here, 2 here, 3 here, and 1 there. I could have put another one there, but that is not going anywhere. And the great thing is I've never had to put any straps over the top tube, so I think this is looking insane. We're on a busy main road, as you can see. I'm going to wait for a car to come and see how many seconds it takes me to catch up with the traffic. After this Fiesta, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds. And we're having to brake hard. Wow. What an absolute machine. Let's see if we can accelerate a Fiesta. Go. Yeah. Let's go. Right guys, for the first time in YouTube history, we are racing a 4,000 watt, a 3,000 watt and a 2,000 watt. I'm on the 4,000 watt. You've got the 3,000 watt to my right and the 2,000 watt Andy Kirby kit to my left. We're going to see which one accelerates the fastest. You guys ready?
Yep.
I don't think we're lined up, look. 3,000 watts taking the lead already. Yeah, we're all back in line. Right, in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, it's tight with a 3,000 watt. And we're just taking the lead. Wow. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, I've got a slow start. The 3,000 watts taking the lead. I'm on your right. Ah. In 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, it's tight with a 3,000. Oh, I'm taking the lead. 4,000 watt is the champion, guys. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.